Hey everyone, and welcome back to We Talk Politics. I am Corey Tanisoff, joined by co-host Gerald Mendoza, and today we're going to talk about the Senate race in 2020, the presidential race in 2020. We're going to finish off talking about the Republican National Convention since we only covered the DNC last time we spoke, and then we're just going to talk about some other stuff, updates on coronavirus, and catch some other stuff there in the middle. So we're going to start off looking at the Senate races. Gerald, right now, what do the election betting odds look like?
All right. This is probably some of the closest election betting odds I've seen. Our favorite website, and I actually put the link down in the description today, is electionbettingodds.com with John Stossel, where they use FTX, Betfair, and Predicted all together. Pull those numbers together, pull all the betting together. Right now, up to the minute, they update every minute on this page. Um, there is a 50.9% chance that the Senate will keep control and a 49.0% chance that the Republicans will take control. So by 1%, the Democrats have the edge right now, and their estimate for the way each Senate rate is going to fall and the way it's going to be the results at the end for the next, basically the next Senate until the midterm elections. Um, they are calling or they are predicting a 50-50 split Senate. So 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans. There was at one point some enthusiasm surrounding the Senate race in Montana, which still is reasonably close. And it looks like the lead that this website is predicting is currently still falling 1.4% in the last day, but it's still at 62.7%. That a Republican is going to stay in that Montana seat. And the Democrats thought they had a chance at a Senate seat in Georgia, but that is also not very secure right now. It looking more and more likely that the Georgia Senate seat is going to stay Republican. And all that together with everything else shaking out the way it's going to shake out, it looks like a 50-50 split is very, very likely in the Senate. Corey, your thoughts on a 50-50 split Senate for the next 2 years?
Yeah, well, you also had mentioned to me earlier, what was it, Montana that looked like it was going to go in one direction?
Montana, they were thinking about something about there was the thing is there was an incumbent uh, the governor who was a Democrat, a well liked governor, good approval rating. Think of it like this. Think of it if Larry Hogan, again, we use Maryland as an example because we live here, but think about Larry Hogan saying, "All right, I don't have any more terms left to run. Let me run for the Senate." He would still be a popular candidate, and that's what I think, the Democrats were banking on. But right now, it's still looking like the Republicans still have the edge in that state.
All right. Well, I guess that's how it's going to shake out then if the election was today and if those odds are 100% correct. However, as we know from every election ever, the polls are never really what they look to be. So, in my opinion, if we have a 50-50 in the Senate for the next 2 years, I would not necessarily have a problem with that. Either way, it comes down to you're going to have some bills that try to pass through and they get that 50-50 split and you need a tiebreaker and it'll come down to your vice president. It's either going to be Kamala Harris or Mike Pence making that, or you're going to have those who abstain, they're absent, or they vote no vote. So there's anything that could happen in this 50-50 ball game. I don't know. I mean, we're just going to have to see how it shakes out. But I don't see much changing, even if it goes 50-50. There might be a little less amount of bills passed just because they're going to have to be trying to work bills in that appeal to the other side of the aisle in order to just pass them through the Senate, first of all. And then you might even see an increase in bills just by both parties trying to appeal that same sense, but put them into their own little packages. But aside from that, I really don't have much else to think about it. What about you, Gerald?
Um, I don't know how. I think it really depends on who the president is going to be. Honestly, I think it's going to be if President Trump wins again, um, and if he gets reelected and there's another 4 years of President Trump, it could make things contentious in the Senate. It could be, I don't know. They said there's things that the Democrats want to do that a lot of Republicans don't want to do. One of the things that's basically tabled right now that the Democrats could pick up if they get enough support, or if they have the edge with the vice president making that tie breaking vote, is to create a new state in the union, which is DC, which already the bill has already passed in the House. If the Senate approves it, I believe that's it. I think I don't know if
The,
that's well. The
the
president would have to
president would
sign it.
have to sign off on it.
Well, look, if it's 50-50 and people vote along party lines, which is the Democrats would vote for statehood for DC, the Republicans will vote against, and if it the tie breaks and it gets approved, that means that Kamala Harris is the vice president, which means Joe Biden will sign it into law.
Right, right. Well, on that note of something tabled right now, there are other things that would surely go through that they've kind of been sitting on their hands on in the last 4 years that Democrats would really like to see pushed through. And those are an increase in a state health care, or not, rather a state health care, not individual state, uh, like a nationwide health care plan, nationwide student funding plans, college loan forgiveness, anything on that matter, whether it comes to the increase in government spending on like socialized needs for Americans. They would also look to change gun laws. They would, and the immigration laws, especially because those have been really hard to pass during these last 4 years, trying to allow for various things to happen. Most of it has to run through the Supreme Court, honestly. We've seen more Supreme Court cases regarding immigration than we have bills signed off. But if the Senate goes blue this season, then we will see an uptick in bills passed that are trying to make up for lost time. And if the Senate goes red, we will probably see more of the same.
Well, here's the thing is that we will see the uptick definitely because the House is not turning red. I don't think it's going to turn red anytime soon.
No.
You would need a landslide like we've not seen before on the House election side in 2022 for it to turn red. It is
Yeah,
not happening this year.
I completely agree.
And if both chambers of the Congress are blue, then things are going to get streamlined. I believe. I think they're going to go through, even if it's all along party lines. Things are going to get streamlined. I do want to point your attention to two of the closest races. I still think one of them is in Georgia. David Perdue, the Republican, has a 59.1% chance of winning over John Ossoff. I don't know how to pronounce that. That seems to be one of the closest ones, but really the closest one in the country right now is Iowa, which technically right now on all the projections are still leaning red, but only barely because Senator Joni Ernst is doing terribly. And she's being challenged by Democrat Teresa Greenfield. So,
and what do those numbers look like if you have them?
The percentages right now on that one is 52 to 47%, 52.4 to 47.6. So I think even at this point, in terms of polling, that's within some margins of error. So it could be completely tied for all we know.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, worse projections. We've seen better projections. We've seen people who have a 94% chance to lose the presidency come and become the 45th president of the United States.
That's true.
We've also seen people who went from being, I mean, it works the same on both ways. You see people who are shoo-ins and then they blow it because the polling numbers were not representative of every single person going out there. And because of the small sample sizes that people are dealing with, there's no accurate way to capture everybody who's voting and put that down into one compiled number.
Yeah,
so
we got to remember that polls are just polls. They're not definitive. They're not. I mean, I wouldn't even call them too much of a. They're not an exact science, but
three kinds of lies.
Right, there are three kinds of lies.
Yep, and we've already said that quote enough on between these shows. Yeah. So if you don't know it by now, then you're not going to know.
We're not gonna trademark it because that belongs to Obi. It's true, but like I said, the projections in the Senate are extremely tight, and like I said, the polls are projections of what might happen, but they're not necessarily definitive. In terms of the polls on the presidential side in general, Joe Biden has had the lead for a while now. He has, and and he still technically does, but his lead is going down in terms of the spread. Real Clear Politics usually my go-to. I also use 538 to try to find different rated polls and a little more. They have the PDFs available for those polls as well, so you can always find good information there. Right now, the spread has Joe Biden at a 6.2 points over President Trump in terms of percentages. It's 49.6 to 43.4, but that is less than it was even just about on the let me see, on August 15th, which is a little more over a week ago. And you know what, that makes sense. We'll talk about this, but a week ago, Biden had almost an 8-point spread. It was a 7.9-point spread over President Trump in the polling. And right now, his lead has shrunk down to 6.2, and it seems to be going down. And President Trump's percentage of winning is going up. And I think that's mostly due to the convention. He actually has gotten a convention bump when Vice President Biden didn't.
Well, I think there's a lot more publicity attention on the Democratic National Convention this season just because we had so many more speakers there. When you look to the Republican National Convention, it seemed to just be people locked in and a lot of speeches going to their viewers and not necessarily to the world as being broadcasted all across for everybody to see, which it was. And as we were talking earlier, it seems like the Republican camp is just becoming more and more I guess, comfortable with some misinformation that they're putting in their speeches and in their campaign activities. But, it shows on both sides. It showed the results of it on both sides, I should say. We've seen a bump in Trump numbers afterwards, and we've seen a drop in Biden numbers afterwards. And I don't know if it is a direct result of the conventions, but there is some other things when in attack ad wise territory and just in interviews and speeches that they're making now that can affect their campaign. And because we are 64 days out from election week, there's only going to be more and more of those ads and of those speeches that can either win you a vote or lose you a vote. And I'm excited to see what that has.
I'll be honest. Like right now, we don't have regular cable. We have Sling and a bunch of other streaming apps. So our ad exposure is very limited. But I will say, in terms of what's on YouTube, I'm seeing a lot more Trump ads on my YouTube videos than Biden ads. So I don't know how much money the Trump campaign is spending on that ad and those ads, but it must be outnumbering whatever Biden's putting out. I also want to point out the polls in the top battleground states. On July 28th, Biden had a 6.3 point spread, or actually his biggest spread was 6.3 around that July 25th to July 28th window, and his numbers have been going down somewhat steadily. And today he only has a 2.7 point spread on the top battleground states. Now, this is a conglomeration of the polls in Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona. Right now, North Carolina is leaning barely at 0.3% towards President Trump. All other states are showing between 2.2 and 4.7% leaning towards Biden, but that is a lot lower of an average than we've seen in the last 2 to 3 months in terms of these battleground states that, like we said, will determine the presidency, like Wisconsin, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Arizona.
Yeah, well, the interesting numbers there are what we have seen in the last month. I mean, if you can, I don't know if you have that election betting odds in front of you from the charts. And if you could tell me what it says at the end of July, what percentage Joe Biden had to win versus today.
Yeah, let me find the charts here. Let me actually share the screen with you guys. Again, great website, electionbettingodds.com. Link is in the description. But here is the chart right now. Can you see that, Corey?
Yep.
So I don't know if you see this is where President Trump was all this time. Like I said, he was a clear favorite for a while. Joe Biden came up here in March, went down a little bit, but then as the pandemic and the social unrest started gaining more attention, gaining more steam around the
And as
country,
everybody dropped out.
and because everyone else dropped out as well, that also helps. Um, the you could see Joe Biden taking a clear overtaking President Trump very decisively, but now almost as quickly as he's gone up, he's going back down. Now this is today as of 9:04 p.m. Biden only has a 51.5% chance of winning the presidency when just at the beginning of the month he had almost a 60% chance of winning the presidency. His highest was I think 5.59.4. So definitely things are shifting in the public consciousness right now. Things are shifting in the polling numbers, in the betting markets, and like we said, we're interested to see where this goes. But we have been saying for a long time now, there's always been this potential for. We've always seen a small potential for possibly a landslide, but we've been saying this is going to be one of the closest elections of all time since the beginning. We
Well,
always thought it was going to be close, and now I think everyone's getting a better idea of how close the situation actually is.
right. And what it comes down to is honestly, it's a lot of that social media presence, and it kind of skews the thought method into thinking that Joe Biden is a surefire landslide victory. And when you look at it like this, because when you look at it over 2018 and 2019, it's all people because Donald Trump is in the mainstream right now. He's the main focus of attention, aside from coronavirus and police relations going on in the United States. But for the last 4 years, he has been the thing that everybody looks at and sees on their TV every single day. So you see him every day, and then something can happen, and you're like, oh, well, he said that. I'm not really thinking about voting for him. But the people who are going to vote for him are, a good bit of them are very like loud and chattery on social media, and every single one of us has somebody who's a little too loud on either end of the spectrum and had to unfriend them real quick or at least mute them. But for a good part of it, there's not that many people in a broader scheme of things who are just straight up announcing, saying like, oh, I'm 100% voting like this. I'm 100% voting for Trump this year. So then it comes out to these times, and now they're showing up. Now they're showing up at the polls. They're going to show up on election day. And we're seeing it in the numbers right now. You and I have even theorized this could be a count off. We could see a count off in the election at 269 to 269.
It could be an exact tie. There is a potential for that, and as the models get closer and closer, and as the projections start readjusting, that could be an even more likely scenario that comes up more commonly in conversation as we get closer to election day. If I can bring it back a little bit to the fact checking and the more cavalier attitude towards misinformation that the RNC put on display last week during the convention. The thing about the RNC is I think that they figured out that they can get away with it because most of their voter base doesn't want to look at fact checking. Is not going to do their own. They're more likely to pay attention to what they see on TV and take it for a fact just because it came out of the mouth of someone they like. And that might be garnering. It just might be that voter energy is ticking up, but it also could be that there are fact checkers on both sides, and the fact checkers on the Democratic side. Not only is there more scrutiny on the Democratic side from fact checkers, there's more scrutiny on the Democratic side because not even all Democrats like Joe Biden. Because we're still seeing the effects of this movement towards a more further left idea for the Democratic Party that the party still is not, I mean, I don't think they're getting behind it. I think they still want to try to keep a moderate a more moderate idea of a Democratic Party instead of just going straight towards um, the ideas represented by Bernie Sanders, uh, representative a Representative Alexandra Ocasio Cortez, and other more progressive Green New Deal type candidates.
Well, 100%. I agree with what you're saying because it's you're right. And that kind of feeds into what I was saying about the social media buzz is there's all this buzz in the years in between in the interim when he is just worrying about being president where everybody else is making their steps, senators, congressmen, governors alike, businessmen are making their vows like, hey, this is why I should be the next Democratic nominee. And so then buzz comes up about one candidate and a lot of people jump on that. And then that creates a schism in the Democratic Party when you had a good chunk of Democrats who want to go further left, and they supported Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and their ideas. And then the bigger base of the Democratic Party wanted the safer, more moderate solution in Joe Biden. And so that comes out, and then it comes down time to like, okay, well, now we have to pick our new president. Everybody gets one vote, and you got to use it towards whoever you want in. But then there's that base of voters who voted in the primaries for Bernie Sanders, even when he wasn't an option on it because it was just Joe Biden. So you had a big issue with that. And so now those people feel like they don't have any respect from the Democratic Party. So they might not even be feeling up to vote. And it's kind of the same thing that we saw on the right wing in 2016 with Donald Trump, when a lot of Republican Americans wanted to see somebody a little more, I guess I would say a little more small government, a little more conservative. And those people kind of felt put off by Trump at the same time, and they went out and did not vote for Trump. Or if they did it with a grain of salt. So we're going to see people come around on that on the left side who are Democrats and who don't really support Joe Biden, but they're still going to vote for him. And then we're going to see people who fall off that wagon, and you're just like, you know what? I'm not going to support this. I know how this goes. I'm not going to support it. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that works itself out in the election numbers.
Yeah, um, I like I said, I'm interested to see exactly how voter turnout is going to turn out this year. Like literally, I believe what you said is correct. A couple of weeks or a few weeks ago, that it's either going to be the highest voter turnout we've seen in recent history or the lowest. I don't think it's just going to be a run of the mill election turnout.
I don't think we're going to be up 2 million from last year. I think we're going to be up like 15 million, or we're going to be down 10.
Yeah,
which is a massive number.
Right, those are massive numbers for voter turnout in this country. So again, we'll see. I don't know. We don't know what the new voter base is doing. Those who are going to turn 18 by the time November 3rd comes around, I'll be interested to see how that works out. Because they're not being paid attention to by polling either. And I think that's an important thing, is that everyone who's going to be 18 on election day or during election time is going to try to make sure that, they go out and vote for the first time. And what a time to have their first election go.
Well, and also we saw in 2016, it was the lowest voter turnout in 20 years, and just barely over half of all voting age Americans went to the booths. And, I mean, even if we see, I'm going to double check this number real quick. I believe it was 126 votes, 126 million votes were counted in the 2016 election. So if it drops by, like, it's not just going to drop by like a million. It's not going to drop by like 2 million. It'll be like a 10 million, 20 million drop this year if it does. And there's that margin of error of like the 126 or whatever number I just said. It's not going to stay the same. It'll give like a plus minus of like 3.
Right, exactly.
But if it jumps, it's going to be I could see it being 150 million come out.
Yeah, that's just a little less than half of the population itself. So again, we'll see. We'll see how everything shakes out. We'll be paying attention to that.
I also,
Um,
my personal, if I may put one last thing in about this, I do think that the numbers are going to be significantly lower. And I think it's going to be because of the coronavirus hitting our nation and the confusion around mail in ballots and when to mail them in, how to mail them in, and trying to drop them off and putting them at the wrong places, not doing it correctly. And I think that could take out 1 million votes or so
I
just
mean,
by incorrectly filling it out or filing it late.
or depending on how long it takes, there are state laws that dictate how counting is supposed to work. So, if it's been too long and the absentee ballots still aren't counted, then they can't be counted after a certain amount of time. Um, Same thing with regular ballots. If they weren't given the correct postage or they weren't handled correctly before putting them into postal service hands, or if it just took too long for the certain or whoever is contracted to pick up the ballot boxes and everything. If something happened, we don't know what could happen. We really don't. And at this point, anything could happen with the way this year is going. So this election being marred by something like that is a complete. It's a possibility, and I'd honestly be surprised if it didn't. If something like that didn't happen. Like I remember, what was it? Some last election, someone said on one of those smaller election coverage sites or YouTube streams or something. They said I wouldn't be surprised if a satellite crashed into a polling place in Pennsylvania at one point. Like, yeah, that sounds about right for this year.
Anything could happen. A meteor.
Apparently, one's supposed to come before election day.
Oh, will it?
Somewhat close. There's a 0.4% chance that it'll hit the Earth.
All right, I'm rolling the dice.
You roll the dice on that one. Let's see the odds on that one. But yeah,
0.4. What is that? I'm trying to think of the number for that.
you're gonna have to put in like
100 times
$15,000.
1.04. Oh, 104. All right. I'm going to do this. Pick a number between 1 and
No,
4.
not 1.04.
No,
0.4.
0.4. Oh, 0.4.
Yeah, that's the
So
percentage.
oh my goodness. Okay. So a 0.04%.
No, 0.4%.
0.4%.
0.4. Yeah.
Okay. So that's 1,004. 1 in 1,004 chance. So if I tell Google, pick me a number between 1 and 1,004. If it gives me, we'll say 69, then that means we're all dead. Oh, 31. All right, we're alive. We're good. We made it.
There you go. Transitioning now, I do want to do a little piece of political trivia right now. The state of Massachusetts has yet to do their or conduct their Senate primaries or their primaries for the state. They held off on them for like on one of the Senate seats for some reason. And right now, running for the Senate seat are Senator, I forgot his name. Hold on, Senator Markey. Yeah, Senator Markey of Massachusetts. He is the incumbent, I believe, senator. He is technically on all the projections right now projected to win for the state of Massachusetts, a reliably blue state. But it's interesting that he's leading the polls because he's running against Joe Kennedy III, the grandson of Ted Kennedy. Oh no, the grandson of one of the I forget which Kennedy it is. The grandson, I believe, um of John Kennedy. I really don't know which one. I know he's the third for like his. I don't think his father's name because I think his mother was the actual Kennedy.
I'm going to
So
give this a little Google. We'll
yeah,
find
go
out
ahead and
about
do
it.
that. But in any case, this is an example, one of the only examples, at least in my lifetime, that I've ever seen that a Kennedy is not doing well politically. It's not just being streamlined through the public, through the process, and basically being a shoe in for whatever office they're running for.
Grandson of RFK.
Of Robert Kennedy. Okay. Yes, grandson of Robert Kennedy. Um, but like I said, significant in the fact that I guess the state of Massachusetts finally moved past the Kennedy family, which is interesting because that seems like a political dynasty that was meant to stay in the country forever because they did so well.
Well,
What? Stop.
I mean,
Stop. Um, while they
how do you
were
quantify
in
well?
office,
Okay.
while they were on office, they had high approval ratings. They did well in their campaigns. But
And that
again,
matters at the end of the day for them.
it does. Um, but no, I honestly thought a lot of people, not just myself, a lot of people thought Joe Kennedy III could have been one of the newer faces of the moderate wing of the Democratic Party. Like after Joe Biden, all these people are finally out. Joe Kennedy, being a young and up and comer, but also has that family history, he could have been a shoe in to be the new leader of the Democratic Party. Should the party have gone that way, think about the think about a primary battle between AOC and Joe Kennedy III.
That would be an interesting thing to see. I mean, the only issue with Joe Kennedy is that he was not as successful as many or any of his political relatives. But he did one thing better than them.
Yeah.
So,
He
well,
is.
it would have been something interesting to see. However, if he does end up losing this race, I'm not sure where there is to bounce back from that.
Well, he is seen. Well, I guess at that point, there's nothing really getting in his way from putting a presidential stint.
Yeah, but you need to have that kind of not immediately coming off of losing a seat.
Well, I know he's not losing a seat. He's a representative who's going for the Senate seat.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, why not, right?
I mean, at this point, because like everyone's like, well, you gotta have a little more experience to have name recognition. There is no problem with name recognition with Joe Kennedy III.
He's Kennedy.
He's a Kennedy. So, again, we'll see how that goes. He is projected to be one of the people who tries to throw their hat in the earliest for the 2024 presidential election. Him
I'll
and
throw my hat in right now.
uh,
Not old enough.
not old enough.
Not yet.
2040.
Yeah, I'll be there.
2040. A
Both Corey and
Tanasoff,
Gerald. A Tanasoff Mendoza ballot, 2040. Heard it here first.
yeah. This will come back to bite us.
We are the first people who have announced our candidacy for 2040 election.
There you go. Absolutely. Making it official. From this point on, we'll be known as the We Talk. No, I can't. No.
The We Talk presidency.
We Talk presidency. There you go.
Oh, God. This idea is falling apart already.
Absolutely. Anyway, next.
Good thing we got 20 more years.
Good. Yeah. We can figure it out by then.
We'll get it good.
America might not, but we will.
Speaking of America not figuring out much, or really anybody figuring out much, coronavirus numbers, the ones that everybody always wants to hear. I believe that the United States or the world has surpassed 13 million deaths.
Deaths in the world. Let me check. I believe it's 13 million. Yes, it's over 25 million cases confirmed. I know that much.
Oh, then it wouldn't be 13 million. It'd be 1.3 million deaths or something like that.
No. Because
25 million in the United States.
Cases?
Yeah.
No, those are global cases.
There have been 25 million global cases.
Right. And there have been 6 million in the U.S.
Then how many deaths? Because it wouldn't be 13 million deaths. Either way, 25 million coronavirus cases. Pop a bottle of champagne. Woo!
Yeah, this is absolutely. I mean, I still sometimes it hits me in waves that like we're living through an actual pandemic. Honestly, like I it doesn't register sometimes, but it's still it's still a lot to take in. I think. I went to the barber over the weekend, needed a haircut, and I'm just like, keep your mask on. There's only, they only have every other chair working, if that. You have to have scheduled appointments. You take your temperature. You write your name down just in case of anything. You can have your reference. And the chairs where people would usually sit on the inside are all flipped over and on the floor to make sure, so that people don't sit down and spend too much time together. It's, that at that moment I remembered, I'm just like, right, this is still an extremely unusual situation for us to be in. And by the way, the death toll according to Google's conglomerate count is 848,000 right now.
There we go. Well, I'm
So
glad it's not 13 million.
yes,
That
thank
would
you,
have
Lord.
been
Uh,
awful.
those are World War numbers.
Yeah, those are, yes.
Yeah.
Not quite plague numbers, though. I don't think we're
I'm not
reaching
saying
that.
that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that next phrase, but
Knock on wood.
yeah, goodness. But yeah, the numbers in this country, especially, are still going up. They're still going up. Um, Brazil and India are not doing great. Russia's still not doing great.
I
Even
believe
though
France just took some steps back, too.
I'm not. I'm not entirely sure, but the I'm surprised the method that Putin used of releasing lines into the public still hasn't worked.
Dude, he didn't put enough out.
He didn't put enough out. Yeah.
In
or
other news about the coronavirus, Canada is buying 17 million test vaccines from Novavax, a United States vaccine making company.
right.
They have agreed in principle to buy this many.
Yeah, it's again, everyone's trying to make sure they jump right on the ball when these vaccines become available, because obviously nobody wants to be left behind when the rush comes in to buy everything. Um, again, I really do hope we get a vaccine soon. I hope it's something that can be altered in the future as well, considering the potential that this virus has to linger for such a long time and possible. And it's already slightly mutated at one point already. So this could be just something that people give their kids, or should give their kids, um, uh, when they're growing up. This could be like chickenpox, polio.
Or this could be, I saw something the other day and I did not bother to fact check it because I let you do that for me. That if you had coronavirus, you can get sick of it again after like 2 months. So if that holds true, or anything of that sort, if you can get sick of it again, even though you have the antibodies, then it might just be a vaccine that you just, every couple months, just, or they'll develop a strong enough one that lasts and sticks around, which will probably be the case. As most vaccines, you don't have to get every couple months. You get it every like 5 years.
Right. I think 2 days ago, this article from CNN Health says that the doctors found a possible case of COVID-19 reinfection inside the United States. Again, I don't know how this is going to work unless we get an even better testing infrastructure. We're already ramping up testing numbers as is, but I think we need to ramp up even more. They said the World Health Organization suggests for our population 5 million tests a day, I believe.
Wow.
For us to get accurate numbers. And I don't think we're close to that right now.
I'm going to go out and get tested. I already know what it's going to be.
That's fair. And I think that was some of the hesitation that some people have, that some government officials have in trying to tell everybody just go get tested no matter what, is that because there's been such a hard limit on the testing that is available, the testing materials, the kits, the testing lab capacities that they're running day and night, and there's still like miles of materials they have to test out the door, that they didn't want to overwhelm the system any more than it already had and save any potential tests for people who are actually showing symptoms. But for the most part, these last few months, the country as a whole in general has not had the capacity to test the way they're supposed to because of limitations on testing materials. I think we're getting better at working towards being able to test more regularly and more frequently and with more repetition, which would yield much better results and much more accurate information coming out of testing labs. But we're just not there yet. The material isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a process. We were not at all equipped to nobody in the world was equipped to handle a global pandemic such as this one with such high infection numbers and an airborne pathogen. Nobody was ready. Nobody was equipped. Nobody was thinking about it. And then it hit, and everybody had to go into emergency mode. And some places did it quicker than others, but still we were all left with the consequences of it. Now, the issue, yeah, as you were saying, the issue originally was that the testing kits, we didn't have enough. So if you were healthy and you would go get tested, then you could be taken away from somebody who was sick and needed to get tested for it. But then at the same time, that puts the numbers in a weird category, because then all these healthy people aren't getting tested, and so then we don't have accurate numbers.
Or potentially healthy people who asymptomatic people, as you know.
Right. So either way, the numbers don't really look as good as they should. They don't look as bad as they could. The numbers are just the numbers right now, and because not everybody has been tested, and because nobody's getting tested except for NBA and NFL players every single day, then we don't really have those kind of numbers going on right now.
Oh, I forgot to mention this. Not really related, but you reminded me when you said NBA right now is that the NBA ownership and team, the players associations and all that got together and they made a let's say verbal contract, an announcement that they would use their arenas as they would allow anyone to use their arenas for voting centers.
Nice.
Because it's open spaces and much more manageable, and also an extra polling place right now is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, and you could do it down on the court.
Right, yeah. And and I'm sure there's some arenas, like if you think about in New York, the arena has like 3 or 4 levels, and it's easily accessible from the road and the metro.
Exactly. Yep. So that'll really take a big help, or it'll take a weight off of the shoulders of those local election branches. However, they still will need to supply a number of workers for it. And as we know, the election workers right now are in very short supply.
I'll be honest, if I can speak a little bit about personally, I signed up to be a poll worker twice at this point right now. I still haven't received anything from either the State Board of Elections or from the county. I think I'm going to call them because I do personally want to work this election. I very much enjoy working the election. The last time I did it in 2018, I thought it was a really good experience. You know, I think it's important to help out during the election, and I'm very much willing to do it. I have not been, up to this point, to my knowledge, exposed to anyone with the coronavirus. I've been keeping myself safe, even while I'm working with the census, going door to door in some places and walking around. I've been doing my utmost to keep myself healthy, to keep, make sure everyone in my family and whoever they're in contact with is healthy. Yeah, so I don't know. I will keep you guys updated to see if they put me on to be an election worker or not, but I am definitely willing. If anybody from the government would end up watching this and see me, hello.
Hopefully they don't end up watching this. We don't want the government watching this, especially not the pre-show.
Right. But yeah, so I think that was, I think the players really these last 2 weeks have shown a lot of including with their postponement of certain playoff games to get people to pay more attention to the situation in Kenosha and just in general in the country. But altogether, the players in the NBA and other sports leagues are following suit, have been shown to be more willing to use their platform to speak or to work towards finding solutions in the country right now, especially at a time like this. So I think, I applaud the players for coming up with that idea or being in support of the idea to use the home arenas as testing centers. So.
Yeah, it seems like really good work has been coming out of the NBA, not only the players, but the owners, as you said, and they're just really receptive. It puts a lot of my faith into the league and into that operation. Aside from, and going into a different sports thing, we didn't discuss this in the pre-show, but the NFL is now taking over the probe into the Washington Redskins sexual harassment allegations in the organization, deep-rooted in the organization. The Washington football team.
Washington football
team. The Washington football team has been alleged over the past 2 months to have been heavily embroiled in a sexual allegation and sexual harassment scandal involving their various members of their coaching staff, their players, and even now their owner.
Yeah, owner, high level management. Um, um, yeah, I think the most recent one involved certain situations involving the cheerleading squad.
Dan
Um,
Snyder, how about him? And now the NFL is showing their guts and finally taking over an investigation that matters and that is happening under their own noses. The NBA, much better than the NFL, is doing everything in their power to help with the civil unrest right now that they can. And the NFL is currently not doing anything about that and instead investigating a football team who needs to be investigated.
late to the party, I might add.
Late to
The
the
league,
party.
the league should have taken over that at the very beginning and taken immediate action. And I speak of this being a dedicated
Football team fan.
football team fan. um, yeah, the ownership has been terrible for a long time, but I didn't know there was this level of actual criminal misfunction and abuse going on, and it needs to be taken care of. I have a lot of trust in Ron Rivera that he's doing a lot of good things in the team, firing a lot of people, putting different people in, because I think he has a higher level than just head coach. He's actually part of the management, but since he's new and part of a different team, he's really taken to being a new leader for the team, in like for the team and the organization. They're rallying around him, so um, I pray good things come out of this. I pray uh, justice is served, people's rights are protected and defended, that everyone who deserves to go to jail or deserves a criminal punishment will receive one. And I hope Dan Snyder is forced either out of his own will or through decision of the NFL ownership group is forced to sell the team.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And switching gears here, we're going to take a look at a bit of global politics, which I found really interesting. So, earlier this morning, the first direct commercial flight from Israel has landed in the United Arab Emirates. It took off from Tel Aviv and headed to Abu Dhabi, carrying U.S. and Israeli delegates on board. And it flew through Saudi airspace, which was normally forbidden for Israeli planes to travel through. And the UAE this last weekend repealed a law that has been in effect since 1972, which opens travel lines and direct telephone services to both countries and from both countries for the very first time in 50 years.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. Obviously, the Arab world and the state of Israel have not had a warm relationship at all since its existence,
Yeah,
since
ever.
yeah, ever. Um, and this is a step towards, like you said, it's a historic, a result of a historic agreement between an Arab nation and um, a sorry, my camera just went out.
Yep, I noticed that. I was trying to type in the private chat, but
Right, sorry guys.
we can hear you just fine.
Right. We'll wait for that to get back up. But the like I said, the historic agreement between the two nations, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely uh, significant in the fact that there's an Arab nation that has recognized the sovereignty of Israel. I don't know exactly what the UAE has recognized at this point. I don't know what they've decided to accept, what terms they would agree to in this deal. But again, just a massive significance that the Arab nation would consider opening diplomatic relationships with a nation who um, they've seen as not agreeing with their existence for the entirety of their existence.
The Israel Foreign Ministry released a tweet earlier today saying the visit will include working meetings of joint teams ahead of signing of cooperation agreements in the civil and economic spheres for both of those countries. On board the plane of American diplomats included Jared Kushner.
Yeah, my I don't know. My
Who else
opinion,
but?
Jared Kushner can can get
They could take
kind of
up a whole show.
they can take up a whole show. But we're not going to do that. But point is, this seems to be a stepping stone, and this could be the beginning of a lot of new diplomatic relationships with other Arab nations, like Saudi
Or
Arabia.
or a cutting off of certain relations for countries who feel strong enough about it.
This is also, yeah, this is also this. If there's one thing about the Arab nations and their diplomatic relationships with other countries is that it is there is always a potential for unpredictability and a potential for complete cutoff no matter what happens. Um, there's a lot of principles that Arab nations and the nation of Israel hold to themselves, very, that hold as priorities. Um, I'm interested to see. Actually, this just occurred to me. I'm interested to see how the new prime minister of Israel would. I don't know if this is his, you know, his doing at all, or if this is just an exterior a deal that was made with with the UAE. But also, yeah, interested to see how other nations respond to the UAE. Would other Arab nations cut off the United Arab Emirates for their diplomatic relationships opening up with Israel? Um, or is this going to be something like for a nation like Qatar, Bahrain, Yemen, Sudan, Egypt, Syria? I think Jordan is the only nation that technically had open relationships with Israel, but still, well, I'm interested to see how this turns out. I think it's in general a good thing for the nation of Israel and for the United Arab Emirates, and I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, and as we say all too often in this politics show and in everything about politics, we'll just have to see what happens.
Yep, and then we'll definitely be talking about it.
And then we will be here. Hopefully, we will be still here.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to cover before we get to the wrap up?
I do want to. I do want to just kind of mention this. The state of Virginia, an updated ballot will include this year in the presidential election ballot a one Mr. West first name Kanye.
We had a
Yeah, but
rule. We had a rule not to talk about him on this show, and we've made it all the way up until here.
I can't because
because
now
before it, we were like, this is a publicity thing. This is a joke. But now he is a candidate in Virginia for president.
among other states as well. It's
What are you gonna
but
do?
also in other states he's missed the paperwork and they're not going to let him on anyway. Like I know in Wisconsin he tried to get on, but he's not going to be able to be there.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
No,
Can't
I'll,
not vote for him.
I'll,
That's what I'm gonna do.
I
That's
will
what I'm
say
gonna
this
do.
with I'll say with certainty. I will not vote for him.
Yeah,
I'll
I
tell
like
you
to
that
be.
much.
I like to remain somewhat objective on this show and not announce who I will be voting for. But I can tell you with 100% certainty, it will not be Kanye West.
That is, yeah. I'll agree to that. I
And
will.
with that little humorous bit, I have to take this to a little sadder note. Earlier this weekend, esteemed actor Chadwick Boseman passed away at the age 43. He was known for big time roles in 42 as Jackie Robinson and as King T'Challa in various Marvel movies. You got any words for it?
I'll be honest. I was out at dinner with my family. We were eating, and I got the alert from the Associated Press. And I saw that the headline said I had to read it twice because I didn't think it was. I honestly didn't think it was like I thought I misread it, but then I realized I realized what was going on, and I read into it later when I got home about the situation with Chadwick Boseman, and yeah, he through some of his most famous roles, arguably his most famous role was as uh, Black Panther. He was seen as and being heralded as, and I think rightfully so, heralded as uh, a new hero for the African American community, or basically just the African uh, community in the world. Seeing as there's finally I remember people saying there was finally a superhero that looked like them. He also played Thurgood Marshall in the movie Marshall. Like you said, he played Jackie Robinson. All of these incredibly significant figures of African American history, um, played by yet another who's going to be known as, I think, in the history books, a significant figure in African American history because of the impact, the cultural impact he has had. Um, he also did movies in The Five Bloods, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, among others. And yeah, he kept this under wraps. He didn't want to go public with it. And that was his decision about being public with his diagnosis. He decided to keep it private. He decided to fight silently and valiantly. And even though he's no longer here, I think his cultural significance is not going to be diminished, but rather magnified and expanded because of the strength we now see through many of the significant roles that he played.
Well, he passed away on Friday, which coincidentally, the MLB celebrated Jackie Robinson Day on Friday as well.
Right.
Chadwick Boseman, I mean, one of the most phenomenal black actors playing one of the best roles in 42 it's one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. Just an excellent piece. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
He has been, he's been one of the most significant actors in the last decade, honestly.
He's been excellent, but that's it. Wakanda forever.
Rest in peace.
All right. Well, we're going to have to end this episode on a somber note, but this has been We Talk Politics. I've been Corey.
And I've been Gerald.
And we will catch you next week.
See you, everybody.